Inside his empty dorm room, Kader is all by himself. Today marks his very last day at the university. Though he has cleared every official checkout procedure, his graduation brings no sense of relief or celebration. A crucial exam just 1 month away is about to dictate the entire trajectory of his life. The crushing pressure forces him to light a cigarette the moment he wakes up, just to take the edge off his anxiety. Ironically, the social media algorithms already know exactly what he is facing, aggressively pushing prep courses and study materials to his feed.
一刷都是，刷两下就都是这种。抖音都知道我干啥，你知道吗？一刷几个就都是这种。
Kader's dorm room has 6 beds in total, all configured in the classic layout with beds built over desks. Being an older building, it doesn't have an ensuite bathroom. Over the past 4 years, they've always had to walk to the communal washroom at the end of the hallway to freshen up. Today, that familiar corridor feels exceptionally empty. In this video, we follow 22-year-old Kader through his very last day at the university. We will discover how his journey led him from a vocational school all the way to college. This is a glimpse into authentic Chinese campus and dorm life, and a look at the choices and futures that await ordinary young people in China like him upon graduation.
平时上课都几点起？
上课都7点多。
那周六周末呢？
不用上课就差不多睡一早上。
The university allocates just 2 days for students to move out. Weighing down by a mountain of belongings, Kader had already shipped most of his stuff home yesterday, leaving only a few essentials for his final day. But Kader is somewhat of an outlier among his peers. While most graduating students choose to simply throw away what they can't carry, Kader does the opposite, looking to salvage what others leave behind.
三国杀，这个当时他们都没人要，后来我要了，他们都不要。
是他们的东西。
对，他们都不要，我要了。
Every year during these 2 days of official move out, personal belongings discarded by graduating students pile up like mountains outside the dorm buildings. Kader sifts through the heaps to salvage whatever is still useful, which is one of the reasons he chose to stay until the very last day. Yet, compared to these second-hand daily essentials, something else is far more coveted: old-school assignments. Some freshmen and sophomores will specifically come scouting for these papers, only to slap their own names on them and resubmit them to their professors.
给他拿走当作业。
不是写名了都。
今天他们还建一整套换手作业，
能过吗？这老师不都讲过吗？
那不知道，反正都拿着讲。
都拿着当作业能交？
能交，拿着都走啊。
你宿舍住几个人呀？
住5个人。
5个人。
对，他虽然是6个床嘛，实际上只住了5个人。
这空调能用吗？
能用，我现在还没开呢。
这空调需要你们交电费吗？
需要。
这住宿费多少钱一年？
还是600多来着。
600多。
对。
电费呢？
电费每年学校还送电的，电费不贵。
整个学期都是在这个屋里面住。
对。
Just yesterday, 4 other roommates still fill this very room together. They had spent their entire college years here, sharing the same space day in and day out. It was also just yesterday that they gathered to take their final graduation photos.
这个是模仿佩恩这个站位拍的这个，还有乾隆皇帝那个铠甲合体嘛，所以我们也拍了一个这种的。
Today, Kader is left all by himself to close this chapter.
啥感觉自己在这？
特别的无聊吧，就是室友也都不在了，感到特别的无聊，也很没意思。然后呢，再加上现在还要备考嘛，现在压力也特别大，然后现在自己也一个人特别的无聊。
你毕业不感到开心吗？
啊？
你毕业没感到开心吗？
我毕业没有感到开心，因为我在为我的工作发愁，因为我在为我的考试发愁。
After putting the final touches on the dorm cleanup, at my suggestion, we decided to take a stroll around his campus one last time. We walked down those familiar paths, heading towards the teaching building and into the classrooms for the very last time.
上课走过去大概要多久？
大概要7、8分钟吧。
早上不吃饭？
对，现在到早上都不吃饭，因为早上都起不来嘛。
8点上课，几点起来？
有差不多得7点40左右吧。
7点40起来。
Chinese university campuses are typically closed off, functioning like large, self-contained compounds. Cater is relatively lucky. His daily life, from sleeping to attending classes, unfolds entirely within this single campus, with only a rare few activities requiring a trip to the main campus. However, from a drone's perspective, the campus where Cater spent his days looks strikingly small and confined, whereas the main campus boasts far more extensive facilities and functional zones. Since it is the weekend, there are no classes in session. In China today, stepping into almost any university classroom reveals brand, new desks, and a modern environment. Air conditioning in the summer, heating in the winter, all pristine, orderly, and deeply comfortable. A pedestrian footbridge connects the two campuses, crossing over to the main campus. A billboard reading "We are graduated" stands on the central lawn, set up for students to capture their final memories.
你让他穿学士服，你就穿这来拍。
全都穿过了，今天
昨天打了看没拍完。
服不服？
这厉害厉害，
服不服？
真好看呀！
谢谢啊。
前程似锦，拜拜。
拜拜，毕业快乐，毕业快乐。
毕业快乐。
But the school's most distinctive landmark is its library, where the massive arched bookshelves on the first floor create a truly spectacular view. This institution is a private university in China. Roughly 28% of universities are privately run, receiving no government funding. These schools must be financially self-sustaining, meaning their development and operations rely almost entirely on tuition fees. Consequently, tuition here is typically 3 to 5 times more expensive than at public universities. However, government-backed student loans in China benefit from state-subsidized interest rates. The actual annual interest rate is around 3.6%, and interest only begins to accrue after the student graduates and leaves campus. Additionally, there is a 5-year grace period, during which graduates are only required to pay the interest without touching the principal.
学费多少钱一年呢？
学费是16000左右吧，不过当时候是通过那个助学贷款嘛，其实也还好。他那种属于利息很低嘛，你可能一年就几百块钱。
In China, over 95% of parents fully cover their children as college tuition. Students like Cater, who shoulder their own student loans, are a rare minority. What is even more striking, however, is that Cater's monthly living allowance amounts to a mere $150.
一个月给你多少钱生活费
1000吧
？1000块钱怎么可能够花
？1000块钱都够我感觉，因为开销不是很大，除了买烟呀，其他不大。
买烟是最大开销。
买烟跟吃饭吧，其实就这俩。
On top of that, spending time with Cater, you get the sense that he is someone who is incredibly easy to please.
如果说让你现在去就业，让你去找工作，你觉得找个多少钱的工资的，就挺舒服的吧？
一般现在都是这个3、4千的吧，搁郑州，如果搁郑州的话。
你觉得4000块钱就已经是比较不错了？
对，对比现阶段，我感觉4000块钱还挺好。
What is more, Cater is also a strict vegetarian. Since he was a young child, he has entirely abstained from eating meat.
你是心里有负担，还是味蕾上就是
就咽不下去，心里没负担。你看我看抖音，我比较喜欢看那种大鱼大肉，就是那种疯狂的撕咬，反正一条猎狗一样撕咬。
你没有出于什么动物保护啊、爱与和平啊？
没有，纯没有，一点都没有。就是单纯吃不下去，我还经常看别人吃的。
你看着你不觉得恶心？你心理上不会觉得恶心？
那是肉啊，我知道肉香，人家吃的挺香的，恶心啥呀？
那你自己吃不下去？
吃不了，吃不下。
你自己吃什么感觉？
贼难吃，那味道特别腥。
从啥时候？
反正记得小学就开始不吃了。
你毕业你都没啥特殊的感觉吗？
还好已经过去了。我昨天挺有感觉，已经过去那个时间点了。
昨天有啥感触？
昨天就很开心嘛。
就光开心了。
对，就光开心。然后一旦就那一瞬间吧，一旦过去这个时间点，
就回归平静了。
对。
Eager to get home and start studying for his upcoming exam, Cater planned to set off this afternoon. So, I decided to head back with him, hoping to find out exactly what kind of test holds such a definitive grip on his future.
就拍个照纪念一下吧。
This is the very last time he looks back at his dorm room. This tiny space once held countless moments of shared laughter and joy. But the whirlwind of emotions he feels right now is something only he can truly understand. Once he steps away, he may never set foot on this campus or inside this room ever again. It is a 135-mile journey from the campus to his home. If I hadn't come to film, Cater would have taken a 6-hour bus ride back, simply because it's the cheapest option available. For this trip, I decided to drive him home. Luckily, Cater knows how to drive too, so by switching off behind the wheel, we could cut the journey down to just 2.5 hours. The exam Cater is facing is actually China's notoriously competitive civil service exam. He has been quietly preparing for this day for a long time. However, learning that the difficulty level has spiked even further this year has amplified his anxiety. The outcome of this single test will directly dictate whether he can secure a job and stay in his hometown. After over 2 hours of driving, we have finally arrived at our destination. Now follow our camera to take a look inside Cater's home. On any ordinary day, Cater's routine at home boils down to just one thing: endless studying and exam preparation.
就你自己在这儿住？
对，就我自己一个人。
你爸你妈都在郑州？
反正呢，
这视野太开阔了，这景色太开阔了。
Looking out the window, the view is remarkably open. This is a quintessential apartment of an ordinary Chinese family, with an interior style that is as typical as it gets. If you were to walk into almost any average household across urban China, this is pretty much exactly the kind of living space you would see.
哦，你在这儿学习？
This is Cater's bedroom, which also serves as his study sanctuary. Here, he lives and prepares for his exams in complete solitude, managing a daily living cost that drops to less than a single US dollar.
那几个问题。平时你在家里面学习就花的更少了吧？
那花啥呀？花啥呀？不知道花，我自己做饭花啥呀？而且我也不吃肉，顶多5块钱吧，最多5块了。
每天5块钱？
我不吃肉啊，我能吃啥？有时候一天只吃1顿饭，就中午买个菜之类的。
自己一个人待在这儿不孤单吗？
啊？
不孤单吗？
哎呀，只要你学起来就还好，因为你看每天的事很多，这么多东西都要复习嘛。
要背。
不背了，太多了，不背了，就每天看看吧。
When I asked him about his current study plans and his outlook on the future, this is what he told me.
那你天天在这儿学，你不 emo 吗？学的
抽烟呗。Smoke， 没事还跑步。
跑步能缓解压力？
太能了。有时候比如说学了8、9个小时了，实在学不进去了，就打游戏。
那你一周大概学习几天？
一周啊，一周没有固定，想学就学，一般都学，一般每天肯定都要学的。
至少8个小时吗？
有时候学累了，早上学，然后下午学，晚上就不学了，顶多学累了就这样。
那如果考不上呢？那你想象
考不上得看考的咋样，考得好了就差，比如说我就差1、2分是吧？那我肯定继续考。因为不服嘛，你学都学了，你总不可能，哎呀，我学完之后就要放弃了。你说，哎呀，我就才考了50分，哎呀，那扯淡，那不用学了，那扯淡，对吧？所以说我感觉花3、4个月来打磨掉我这个想法是非常好的，无论是考上还是考不上。
你觉得很值？
我觉得非常值，因为3、4个月就可以决定我以后继续学习还是不学习。
做选择。
对，我在选择。我说，如果我考得好，我就继续学；如果考得不好的话，以后我就断了这个念想，以后就不提这个事儿了，就不往这 不往这方面发展。
As we documented in one of our previous videos, university corridors and study halls are packed with students burning the midnight oil, grinding for either the graduate school entrance exam or the civil service exam. In China today, these two paths heavily dominate the post-graduation choices for ordinary college students. Comparatively, the civil service track is far more brutal. It's common to see 100 applicants scrambling for a single opening, and in extreme cases, high-demand positions have drawn a staggering 16,000 applicants for just one single vacancy, given those astronomical odds. Why didn't T. Cater choose to pursue graduate studies instead? Let's hear his own perspective.
那你知道你考的这个民办大学，你当时有想考这个公立大学吗？
想考，那不是学英语考不上吗？最烦英语了，我现在一辈子都不碰英语，因为好好学了。考了个70分，实际上70分对我已经不错了，因为我是零基础。
英语你感觉为什么学不会？
因为背单词不想背。
有没有想考研究生的？继续提。
研究生得学英语，我不考。
研究生要学英语就不考。
他得学英语，我不考。
只要是让你学英语的事情，你都。
对，我不考。如果说考公学英语，我就不考了。但他不考英语。他考的是啥？他考的是咱中文。他考的是咱中文，这都是中文，对吧？他考的是咱中文，他不考英文。就我宁可学这么枯燥的东西，我也不去学英语，你知道吧？因为这些我能看懂，英语我看不懂。这些书都特别厚，我宁愿每天去翻这种书，我都不愿意去学英语。
学英语？那你以后没想过出国去旅游啥的？
我出过蛋，我不出国，因为外国它太危险了，咱国内非常安全，外国都太危险了，我感觉外国现在特别危险。
那你以后挣了钱了，你不想出去旅游吗？
我不出去，因为咱国内旅游发展的非常好，我中国还没转遍了，我为啥要去外面嘛？对吧？我肯定第一选择我才选择在国内旅游，我不会出去外面的。
There is, however, another profound reason behind Cater's unwavering determination to crack the civil service exam. As someone who has fought his way up from the very bottom, he simply refuses to let a single opportunity slip through his fingers.
当时中专的时候当时不是在工作室玩嘛，当时不让我参加那个比赛，不行，我就要去。
你说的？
对，我心里说不行，我就要去参加比赛，这也是我主动换来的吧？
这是一个很关键的一个点。
这肯定关键呀，怎么可能不关键？这是我，就是当时已经不用去学校了，就是那种意思，就是我偏要去。我当时软磨硬泡，我说了说。
这个点对你改变很大。
肯定了呀，然后后来拿了个1等奖，肯定了呀。我感觉这算是一个很大的。然后当时我就明白了一个道理，啥都是自己争取的，感觉这个特别关键。只要是感觉能干的就能抓住，能干就抓住。
This year, the civil service opening is capped at 38,000 positions, while the total number of applicants has skyrocketed to a staggering 3.71 million. In just 1 month, Cater will plunge headfirst into this brutal competition, facing a success rate of barely 1% to avoid pulling his focus away from this final, critical sprint. We've decided to wrap up our filming here. If you're really eager to find out whether this resilient young man can beat the odds and secure the job, please leave a comment below to let me know. If there's enough interest, I'll hit the road and come back to interview him again after the exam is over.